Bayt alayhim salam, especially Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, his companions and his family, recite another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sorry for a bit of delay in our program. Unfortunately, our audio system needed some technical adjustments, so inshallah we will continue our program on the 11th of Muharram, and a day that we remember the strength of Hazrat Zainab Salamullah alayha, her faith, her dedication, and her leadership, that through her iman and taqwa, she continued the message of Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam, and she picked up the flag of Abu al-Fadl Abbas alayhi salam from Karbala to Kufa and eventually Sham. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are of those who learn from Zainab Kubra Salamullah alayha, and we remember her sacrifice, her dedication, her strength, and to inshallah use that as a reminder for our daily lives when we face challenges, obstacles and difficulties of our time, inshallah, for the honor of Hazrat Zainab. Another salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وخاتم النبيين، حبيب إلهنا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا، العبد المؤيد المحمود الأحمد، الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأراضين بأبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين، سيما بقية الله في السماوات والأراضين. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم: له معقبات من بين يديه ومن خلفه يحفظونه من أمر الله، إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم، وإذا أراد الله بقوم سوءا فلا مرد له وما لهم من دونه من وال. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Let's purify our souls, illuminate our hearts with the name of the best of creation Prophet and his family, with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam recommended during the time that we live in, which is the time of occultation, meaning when the final Imam is not accessible in a normal way, in a usual way of actually being able to communicate with him that way. That like a sun in a cloudy day and like a moon who's behind a cloud still benefits us, but regardless, we are not capable of having easy access to him as others have, of other eras and other times when they were able to go and see Imam Ali alayhi salam if they wanted. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam said, during this time recite this dua and this prayer as often. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. I already mentioned this dua. This is known as dua ghariq, dua of a drowning man. Why is called ghariq and drowning man? It could be about that we are drowned in an era of nihilism, corruption, deviance? Or is that we are drowned in our own confusion and our own doubts? And this dua means we ask Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His name, Allah. O Allah, O most beneficent, O most merciful, seeking to His attributes of mercy and compassion. Ya Muqallib al-Qulub, O transformer of the hearts, O the one that you change the hearts. You're the one capable of turning our hearts. Thabbit qulubana ala dinik. Make our hearts, again heart, it's a layer of the soul, but when we say the word qalb and heart, we're referring to the soul, to ruh. Make our souls and our hearts to be firm on our religion and on your deen. Help us to stay firm during this time of uncertainties. And the topic that we started since beginning of our majalis of Muharam was about the importance of change. But one thing we should not forget is that change and muqallib al-qulub, the one who changes the heart, is the one that tell us it's possible to change. Otherwise, what was the whole point of referring to Allah with Ya Muqallib al-Qulub? In the narration of this dua, there's also a very delicate message as well. Because when Imam is teaching this to his companion, Imam asks him to repeat it back to him, to recite it back. And as he's reciting the dua back to the Imam, he says, Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. And he says, Ya Muqallib al-Qulub wal-Absar. He adds at the time, of course, the word Absar to the dua. And Imam alayhi salam tells them not to do that. Stick with what I taught you. And you may say the word Absar is not in any way problematic, because as we say, O transformer of the hearts and our vision. Absar, Basira is insight and vision, or the one that you change our perspective. And I talked about change of perspective as well. But the point of the Imam alayhi salam is to maintain the integrity of the message. If you say your own dua, be creative. Add any word that you want in your own dua. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Khabir, Ya Alim, Ya Jabbar. Say whatever name of Allah you want, and this is your dua. You want to ask Him. And there's no issue. For example, dua Ya Muqallib al-Qulub wal-Absar at the beginning of the new year. It's common among some who celebrate Nowruz and the new year, new solar year. They say this dua, Ya Muqallib al-Qulub wal-Absar, Ya Mudabbar al-Layl wal-Nahar, Ya Muhawwil al-Hawli wal-Ahwal. This dua is not from a ma'soom. As far as I know, it's not mentioned in one of the books of hadith. It's not a dua taught to us by one of the ma'soomin, one of the infallible. Is there a problem if we recite it? The answer is no, as long as we say that this is a dua, we ask Allah for something good. It's in Arabic, but we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for changing our lives, for transforming our lives, for making our Ya Muhawwil al-Hawli wal-Ahwal. He's the one who changes our situation, our statuses. There's nothing wrong with it. But once we go to the Imam alayhi salam, stick with what Imam taught us. We don't need to add anything, because in that case, then we have everybody start twisting it and adding it and changing it to their best desire, and we don't want that to happen to the integrity of the message. What sounds better and looks better is not necessarily what has to be done. And for the past few nights, we discussed the importance of change, importance of reformation, Islah, because we said the ultimate message of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was to reform his time And his message is the message of Islah. In urid illa al-islah. I don't desire anything but Islah and reformation. And to reform is that when we fix something that is broken, when you repair, when you try to ultimately make something better than what it was. That's what reformation is. And we talked about the importance of nazar, our perception and our perspective. We talked about that. What I want to talk about tonight for a few minutes is the importance of change in our character. We need to first understand what I mean by character. As human being, Allah says, قُلْ كُلٌّ يَعْمَلُ عَلَى شَاكِلَتِهِ is another ayah that I discussed before in a different subject. But Allah said, O Messenger, tell people, this is from the Quran, tell that everybody acts according to their shape and character. Shakila, the word shik means shape, and shakila means your character. Whoever you are, you will act accordingly. So if your character is a character, let's say that you have generosity part of your characteristics, right? And also some say personality, right? And personality has different, let's call it types. For example, agreeableness, and things like that. Being cooperative, being argumentative. There are ways that it comes to part of our personality. Our actions comes from that. And there is a big discussion among the psychologists rather than personality types. Is it inherited? Is it something that we develop over time? And that's not the topic. The topic that we want to discuss is that, is it possible to change our character? And the answer to that is obviously yes. Yes, we can change our character. But in order to do it, we need to take certain steps. And the first step, I talked about it last night. Anybody remember what was the last night's subject? Acceptance. Agreeing, believing that there is something need fixing and reforming in my character. Otherwise, it will not get to the point to change. Because I think I am the way I am and it is good. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing broken. What should I fix? It's other people's fault. They should fix, right? They should change, not me. So, in order to get there, we need the importance of the disease of ujb. Ujb is that when we are doing some good, and that make us think that I'm good enough. I settle down with the level of my piety and virtue and the goods that I have, that I turn a blind eye on my shortcoming. And I said that people who convince themselves, remember, before we convince anyone else, we have to convince ourselves. When I decide to do something that is wrong, I have one opponent that I have to defeat first, and that is myself. I have to convince myself that what I do is not bad. And enemies of Imam Hussein, I promise you they had that. They would try to convince themselves that what I do is not that bad. Hur had that struggle. I mention Hur every year. Why? Because he's the example of change. He's an embodiment of somebody changing. They go all the way to the end of the road, but then they make a U-turn and they decide to change. It's possible. Because in our mindset, there are exceptions, but reality is, still it happened. Yes, it's not everyone, but there are a few that they did change. They decided that they don't want to go on with whatever they decided and convinced themselves. And this is what Hur told his son. We have that Hur, before leaving toward Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, his son was also with him in the day of Ashura. His name was Ali. Ali ibn Hur. And it should be also a hint to us that Hur lived during the time of Muawiyah, and Muawiyah put a ban on the name of Ali for children. So it shows he had the roots, by the way, right? Yes, he decided to be a soldier for the army of Bani Umayyah, but ultimately still he chose the name Ali for his son. What was his intention? Allah knows. But for me, the way I look at it is that, yes, his actions is in one direction, but his attraction and his inclination is toward Imam Ali alayhi salam. Because as I said, there was a ban that Bani Umayyah said, you cannot name your sons Ali. If you do, you'll be in trouble. He didn't care. And that's why I say, okay, let's say somebody is lost for whatever reason. But they do something good. They come to Muharam, although maybe they have some bad habits. Maybe they don't care about other religious stuff. Maybe they don't fast in Ramadan, God forbid. They have some sins, but still they name religious and Muslim name for their children. That shows deep down there's something still there. And that's why don't push them further away. Don't say, oh, why you named this for your son? You drink. Why you come to Eid prayer? You didn't fast. Why you come to Muharram? You didn't show off the rest of the year. They have something. So he named his son Hur. Hur named his son Ali. So we have that he looked at Ali, his son, and said, my son, An-nas min ad-dunya rahila. My son, remember that everyone is leaving this life. Not everyone is going to be immortal. Everybody have to taste death. But karamat ad-dunya za'ila. The merits of dunya, the qualities of this dunya are also fading away. They're not permanent, they're temporary. Nalhaqu bil Hussein. I will join Hussein. Let's join Hussein alayhi salam. Nafuz bil shahada. Then we will acquire success through that sacrifice. And that is a true success. And he said to his son, my son, I see hell and heaven before my eyes. I see dunya and akhirah. If I want akhirah, I have to go with Hussein. If I want dunya, I have to stick with Umar ibn Sa'd. And I cannot convince myself to sell my akhirah so cheap. You know the sad part is, those who actually sold their akhirah, they sold their iman because of the dunya, they sold it very cheap. Why? Many of them didn't live that long after Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Yazid only lived 2 years. 2-3 years. Shahadat of Imam Hussein was 61 after Hijrah. He died 64 after Hijrah. Umar ibn Sa'd, 6 years. 67 after Hijrah. He was captured by Mukhtar. And many other soldiers of Umar ibn Sa'd and Yazid, they were captured by Mukhtar in the year 67. 6 years later. So they exchanged 6 years of life. And that life, 6 years, was not a comfortable life. They always have to look over their shoulders that who's coming after them until Mukhtar got to them. Because before Mukhtar, there were other movements like Tawabin, the repenters in Kufa, those who regretted their shortcoming toward Imam Hussein, and they said, okay, Ya la Tharat al-Hussein, we are here to avenge him. So it wasn't just one movement. So from the moment they committed that crime, they did not really had an easy time. So change is possible. But the first step is that I have to convince myself that it is possible. Otherwise, I'll convince myself that I am the way I am, you know? It's not my fault. My dad was like this, I'll be like this. Everyone in my school is like this, everybody in my work does this, everybody in my career does this. So I convince myself that change is not necessary. That I go with the flow. And remember, one message of Hussein alayhi salam to take is that sometimes going with the flow is not right. This is the warning. Because everybody does it, it doesn't make it right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Even if those who justifying it are the majority. You could be a small minority and be with the truth, and you could be the predominantly the majority overwhelming majority. And at the end of the time, you could be wrong. Not every majority is wrong, but sometimes it could be. So that was a step number one. If you want change, if you want to change our character, first step is to accept that there is something. I have to identify my issue. What is my afat? What is my weakness, right? To give a reference for comic book fans, what's my kryptonite, right? What is it? And then once I figure it out, then I can accept, okay, I need to change this. I need to cover this issue. I need to deal with this and reform myself. I need to change it. That's why is a hadith from our fourth Imam. He says, "Man lam ya'rif da'ahu afsada dawa'ah." If you don't know your illness, you will waste the cure. Let's say if you have the most expensive medicine, but you don't know the da' meaning the illness. What's wrong with you? If you take the wrong medication, and by the way, you know how many cases of malpractice by some doctors are out there, that they prescribe the wrong medication. You can cost somebody's life. And Imam Sajjad said this, spiritually look at it, that if you are dealing with your incompetence, that you don't understand, okay, what's wrong with me? What should I pay attention to? Because sometimes we want patting ourselves in the back. No, nothing, you're good, everybody have weakness. Rather than accepting. So how can we do this, number one? How can we identify our issues? So acceptance and identifying, right? That's the benefit of good friends, close friends. If you have a good friend, they will tell you when, and let's say not when, where you have to work on. If you have yes men's around you, that they say you're good no matter what you do, cheer you, you know, the cheerleaders around you, that whatever you do, it's good, most likely you will be in that delusion that you're perfect. But if you have someone that they tell you the way things are, and I said the toxic friend and real friend, the difference between them is the toxic friends, they don't care about your change, they want to put you down. That's a toxic friend. They say things that is out of your control. They say things that they are not on you. Let's say somebody who comes to you and put you and your family down. They make a comment about, oh, you're from this country, or you're from that village, or from that city, your accent is this. These are out of your control. You did not choose to be born in that place, your ethnicity, your race, none of that. That is a toxic friend. Why? Because their intention is to put you down, to humiliate you. That's not a friend. That's a wolf in a cloak of a sheep, right? Something that you cannot change. That's a toxic friend. They make a comment about your family members. They make a comment about your IQ or your intelligence, calling you stupid or things like that. This is not coming from a good friend. Who's a good friend? Imam Baqir alayhi salam said, my best friend, the one that I love the most, ahabbu ikhwani ilayya, the one that I love the most of my friends, are the one man ahda ilayya uyubi, the one who gives me my flaws. They tell me what should I work on. Aib meaning shortcoming, issues, flaws, mistakes. They point it out and help me to fix it. They come and tell me, you know, you have to work on your temper. It's going to cost you so much. That's a good friend. A good friend is the one who encourages us that, you know, you have to work harder. I know you have the potential for it. I think you can do this. What you've been doing, you've been slacking off. You need to work on your skills. This is a good friend. I think, you know, your tongue, you need to work on it. You need to restrain your words. You need to be more vigilant on what you say. You're more aware of what you say. And the list goes on. Man ahda ilayya uyubi. So that's one. Second, family. Family can tell us our mistakes, our issues, our flaws. Your spouse could be a good person to tell you. Because sometimes we take it personal with our spouse. They tell us our flaws. Yes, there are moments at the heat of the argument, we say things that we're not supposed to, but there are in the moment that everything is going well, you can approach your spouse, your husband, your wife, and ask, okay, what do you think I need to work on? But please do it if you're ready for it. If you have a sensitive relationship, please don't test each other. If you know that will be a beginning of a fight and you will not hear the end of it, please, you know your spouse better. But if you have the capacity for it, you've had similar discussion, reach out. You know, one of the ulama used to say, said, okay, if you want to know your flaws and your issues, point out one mistake of your spouse. And then they give you a list of 20, don't worry. You just mention one, they return with 20. I'm not saying to start a fight, I'm not saying to start a fire, but I'm saying that sometimes if they offer something that is not out of despise or hate or anger, it could be very beneficial. Step number 2, when we are in the process of change, is that we need to ask Allah for help. And what I mean by that, remember in the self-help books, all they talk about is, okay, strategies how to change things. And everything is on you. But one thing we cannot deny is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's impact and influence in our lives. That's why in many of our du'as, we ask for change and reform from Allah. For example, in month of Ramadan, this is a dua we recited outside Ramadan as well, right? Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur is a dua that we recite after every prayer. But one statement in that dua is, Allahumma aslih kulla fasidin min umuril, is such a inclusive dua that we cover not only ourselves but everyone, every mu'min. Oh Allah, reform. Fisad means corruption, issues, problems. Any issue, Ya Allah, reform, help us to change it. But you are the one who have to help us. Min umur al-Muslim, in a matter of every belief. If it's financial, if it's family issues, if it's political, whatever it is, Ya Allah, you have the power. Help us to be the mean of your work. Even from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam is mentioned that Imam Baqir alayhi salam used to recite this dua. Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam said quite often, Rabbi aslih li fi nafsi. Ya Allah, help me to do islah of my nafs, to reform myself. فَإِنَّهَا أَهَمُّ الْأَنفُسِ, because that's the most important self. Before I care about anyone else, I have to protect myself. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Quran said first, keep yourself away from hell, then your family. You know, the moment that we say this masjid, I said in Farsi because we have some Farsi speakers, and I said in English as well. گفتم یه حرفی که ما میزنیم برخلاف قرآن است. وقتی که میگیم ما مسجد، اینا همه برای اولاداست، برای جواناست. ما که از ما گذشت آقا، بعدی جا باشد برای جوانا، برای فرزندان ما. قرآن چی میگه؟ میگه قو انفسکم و اهلیکم نارا. اول خودتون رو از آتش حفظ کنید، بعد اهل شما، بعد خانواده شما. اینقدر نگران اولاده هستیم، بعضی وقتا خودم از دست میریم. وقت میشود خسر دنیا و الاخره، هم خودم میره هم اولادم با ما میره. میگن به پدر نگاه کرده، به مادر نگاه کرده. So what Quran says protect yourself and your family. Don't think that, okay, we need a place of worship, we need programs, we need lectures just for youth. No, we need it for everyone. We are in need of advisors all the time. We need of reminders all the time. Otherwise, if I think I'm good, that opens the door of being overconfident and let myself justify my mistakes. But if I'm always remember that, okay, there's danger for me as well. It's not just for my son. It's not just for my daughter. It's not just for my grandchildren. It's also for me. So that's why dua is the second one. Before doing anything, knowing, going back to what we did, the way we look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remember we have nothing. He is the Malik, He's the Master, He's in charge. So even if I want to change, first I need Him. I cannot say, I can do it, I can take care of it myself. Imagine Prophet asking Allah for Islam. Ahlul Bayt and those who are the best of people, they ask Allah. Imam Baqir said, Fatima Zahra, we have a dua after ask prayer from Fatima Zahra. Allahumma aslih li dini. Ya Allah, help me to reform my faith. Don't let it to be corrupted. Don't let my deen to be deviated. Wa aslih li dunya. Ya Allah, help me to reform and change my dunya. Allahumma aslih li akhirati. Ya Allah, help me to reform and change my fate and my hereafter. They're asking for that. So we need to do the same. Ask Allah. You decide to change. After your salat is done, after your prayer is done, go to sajda, ask Allah for help. And you see the work of Allah. Step number 3. Once we decided that I want to change, I ask Allah for help. Now it's the moment of determination. It's a moment of courage. I need to do the challenges ahead of me and I have to be ready for it. Decide and make a decision. Be determined to make the change possible. In dua kumil, what do we say to Allah? قَوَّ عَلَى خِدْمَتِكَ جَوَارِحِ. Ya Allah, give a strength to my limbs to serve you. وَاشْتُدْ عَلَى الْعَزِيمَةِ جَوَانِحِ. Ya Allah, give me that determination. Help me with my willpower, with my courage to come toward you. So once I ask Allah, then there's a moment, okay, Ya Allah, I ask you for help, now I'm going to make a decision. And in order to do that, this is another requirement. It's required to take the first step, not to wait. It's not that I make dua and I ask Allah to take a step for me. Right? This is the misunderstanding of the concept of dua. It's mentioned that our Prophet, when he arrived at a place, he had his camel with him. So he made his camel sit and then he tied the knee of the camel in order for a camel not to stand up and run away. And one of the Muslims asked a valid question. He said, "O Prophet, you're the messenger of Allah. You could have asked Allah to keep the camel for you here. Tawakkul, trust Allah that Allah will keep it here." And the Prophet said, this is a famous tradition, Muslims narrated, Shia and Sunni. Prophet said, tie the knee of the camel with tawakkul of Allah. You do your part as you have tawakkul on Him. Not that you do tawakkul and rely on Him as a replacement of the part you're supposed to do. It means as you're locking the door of your house, you ask Allah for protection. As you're doing it, it's not one or another. It's not a substitute. It was never meant to be that way. Because even if we do the best of locks, there's a possibility of invasion. There's a possibility of breaking that lock down, and it's not something out of mind. That's the moment of tawakkul. Don't live with fear and anxiety. You do your part, the rest leave it to Him. You cannot do anything more than that. So determination and will is needed. That's why Allah in the surah number 13 verse 11, Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ. The word تغيير meaning literally change. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah does not change a people lot unless they change what is in their souls. You have to want that will. You have to have that decision to change. That determination has to be there. وَإِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ بِقَوْمٍ سُوءًا فَلَا مَرَدَّ لَهُ. Allah said, but remember, this is a continuation that we don't hear as often. Allah said, when Allah wishes to visit ill on people, there's nothing that can avert it. Meaning, you cannot say, I don't need Allah, I do everything on my own. If Allah wants something, it will happen. So don't think that you are in charge 100%. There's so much out of our reach. You make a decision to do what you can do, but remember, Allah is the ultimate one with authority and control over everything. Not that He wrote the scenario for us that we have to follow this scenario. No. Knowing that there is much that you have control, that is, in compare what we cannot control, is nothing. There's nothing. Our speculations, our prediction, most times doesn't, end up being true. We do our best. And the last step number 4 and final one, is practice. Is that we fail and we stand up again and we try again and we try again. We have to be persistent. These are the cycle of 4 that we always, when it comes to change of character, we have to think about. Did I identify and accept it? Did I ask Allah for help? Did I make that determination and decision to do something about it? And finally, I stop practicing. You will fail. One big problem is that we expect drastic change overnight. Let's say I have bad mouth. I cannot control my tongue. My decision is cold turkey. From tomorrow, nothing. And as soon as I try, first few hours is good, maybe first day maybe is good. And life throws us something, right? Is a moment, is a hiccup. It's a challenge. And I have a relapse moment. I make a mistake. And as soon as I make a mistake, oh, see? I knew I'm not going to be able to control it. Oh, I cannot change myself. Because of that failure, we say, okay, it's no way, so let me just go back. Rather than thinking that because I decided I was able to stop for 1.5 days, I was able to stay away from this for I don't know how many hours or days I was able to control myself. I don't look at my accomplishment. What I do, I focus on the failure. Oh, see, I failed. And one thing about change, we should know it doesn't come overnight. Reality is not like movies that, people change overnight and suddenly they become totally different person. No, it takes time. Look at, real life is not as we think it is. You try to work with something that has bad scent. Even if you go and wash it, it's going to smell bad for a while. You try it, it's not going to just disappear right away. It's going to be here. So you think something that I live with for a long time, this tongue been used in a certain way for so long, do you think it's going to be that easy to get rid of it overnight? Know that what are we dealing with? How rooted that characteristics or quality may be rooted within us, and it needs more strength, more time. Look at your backyard. It's a good moment of reflection. There are some weeds that is very easy, right? Weeds, to get rid of them is that easy. But sometimes you see something that you did not plant is a tree. You don't know, you didn't check on your backyard. Suddenly you see it's a tree that rooted inside. You don't know where it came from. Now it turned out to be a tree. It's not going to be as easy as that weed to get rid of it. So some qualities within us are easy to get rid of. Some qualities are not that easy. Practice. And one practice that is, as we practice it, as we try, as we attempt, is not to lose hope when we fail. Allah doesn't give up on us. We should not give up on ourselves either. Allah said, "Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim." I will not change unless you want to change, unless you started. So if you started, if you failed, I give you another chance, Allah says. Said, how many times you broke your promise with me? I give you another chance. And you don't want the second chance, you don't want the third chance, you don't want the fifth chance. He is giving us that. So if Allah doesn't give up on us, we should not give up on myself. And in order to do that, we need to embrace discomfort. It's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be a bumpy road. It's not going to be something that I find pleasure in doing it. At the beginning, it will be the toughest. It takes you a while until you see the result, reap, what you sow. Again, tradition said, Tadaddu or Daddul Ghadab bil Hilm. One way to change bad habits is to do the opposite of it. To do the opposite. And this is in the modern language, it said, do what you don't like, embrace the discomfort. Let's say you're scared of water and swimming, what you should do? Hopefully you don't just jump in the ocean and say H.I.Modarres said do the opposite. You go and you try to learn. You jump in, you start, you expose yourself to what you're scared of. So the hadith says, fight bad merit, or let's call it bad qualities or bad characteristics with doing the opposite. So for example, anger. Those who have short temper, fight it with hilm, with forbearance. The moment that you're very angry and you want to say something to cool down, don't say it. Now I promise you, that night will be a tough night. I should have said it. I should have said something. And you know that inner voice, again, I'm not schizophrenic, hopefully that all of you have that inner voice. So, oh, you're weak. The reason you didn't say it, you pretend that you want to be good or you want to be the bigger person. You're weak. You're a coward. You're going to have a tough night. Why? Because you did opposite what you wanted. And your desire is not going to let you go that easily. You're not going to get a simple pass. You don't want to say salam to someone because you think you're better than them? Force yourself. Do the opposite. Just go say salam. Let's see how it will be after a while. If it's arrogance, if it's anger, if it's greed, if it's being stingy and cheap, whatever it is, do the opposite. That's embracing the discomfort. That will start the process of change. And even Imam al-Sadiq take us a step further. Said, okay, if you really cannot do the opposite, pretend. Act as if you are that good. Let's say you're not that generous, right? Act like a generous person. Deep down, you don't really want to be generous, but act as if you are. We have it in the traditions. Act as if you are good. This is not hypocrisy, by the way. I'm not saying that pray if you don't believe in prayers. No, I'm saying certain qualities, act as if you don't have it. Why? Because that's the way to make the change. That's, the strategy of putting your foot in the door. When you start acting like it, eventually you'll be able to embrace the quality itself. That's tricking our nafs, tricking our ego by saying, okay, I know you're not okay with this. I'm acting. I'm an actor. You're a short-tempered person, act as a patient person. Have the attitude of the patient. May Allah inshallah give us the tawfiq of taghyir, change, transformation through these steps. And tonight, in the majlis of Imam Hussain, we ask, Ya Allah, by the honor of Hussain, give us the tawfiq to change, to stand up for what truly matters, to recognize my shortcomings and my flaws, and give me the courage to make a decision, to change those shortcomings and flaws and issues, and make myself a better person, a better father, a better son, a better wife, a better human being, a better Muslim, a better follower of the Imam of our time. All that possible, inshallah, if we take this step for the honor of the Abu Abdullah and his ashab and companions, salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We dedicate tonight's majlis to a 3 years old daughter of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Her martyrdom and shahada took place a while later, until they arrived in the city of Sham, because from Karbala first they were forced and they were transferred to Kufa, and after a while they went towards Sham, and it took them a while. But because our program, we have one more night, tonight we dedicate it to Hazrat Ruqayya, inshallah tomorrow night we dedicate it to Hazrat Zainab, salamun alayha. Three-years-old daughter of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was protected by Zainab during this journey. We have in some reports that when these children could not keep up with the speed of the soldiers traveling, the soldiers would come at them with their whips. They will hit them with the bottom of their spears. And Zainab is walking, making sure to put her body between their whips and these orphans. And imagine 3-4 years old, many of them don't even know what happened. They cannot grasp, they cannot fathom what happened to them. And that's what a lot of parents do to their children, right? We try to shield them from being exposed to unbearable violence or hardship or tragedy. You cover their eyes, you don't let them watch, you don't let them see. I don't know how it was possible for Zainab to hide it from them. Throughout this journey until they arrived in the city of Sham. Sham is known as Levant. Right now is multiple countries. It's a territory of Bani Umayyah. This is where they've been rooted their establishment for years. First thing they did is they made the usara, or the captives of the prisoners of Ahlul Bayt, to stay behind the gate. What they were doing, they were decorating the city to celebrate the killing of Abu Abdullah Hussein. And when they parade them in the street of Sham, they treated those grieving children and women with their laughter, with their celebration, with clapping, with dancing, putting salt on the wounds of these women and children who just lost their loved ones. They settled them down in the ruins near the courtyard of Yazid. In the courtyard of Yazid, what happened, that's a different musibah. But before getting there, after a long journey, now there is a time for these prisoners to rest. And imagine they're in shackles, they're in chains. Women, children, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Zainab, everyone. But at least the journey is over, it's nighttime, so they can sleep. So we have that this beloved daughter of Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam, she fell asleep like every other child who was in this caravan, in this group. But suddenly in the middle of the night she woke up. She began crying. And all she's saying is that, I want my father. My aunt Zainab, you told me that my father went on a journey. When he's going to be back? They call me orphan, but I'm telling him I'm not orphan. My dad will be back. And as she mentioned the name of her father, Hussein, remember that this family were not able to mourn for Hussein. They forced them to leave the bodies of their loved one on the ground of Karbala. And even if they wanted to mourn, if they wanted to grieve, they would have been attacked, they would have been quickly put down, because the warning was that you cannot cry, you cannot say anything. But now in the ruins of Sham, they have a time on their own. As the name of Hussein was mentioned, this is the time of Azza. This is the time of grieving. Everybody in the ruins of Sham began to cry. And hearing this beautiful child of Abu Abdullah asking for her father. The cries of the women and children reached the courtyard. As I said, these ruins was next to the courtyard of Yazid. He woke up, said, "What's going on? Who's disturbing my sleep?" They went and brought the news back. "Oh Yazid, these are the children, these are the women of Hussein. They are mourning for their father, and some of the children, they're asking for their father Hussein. They want to see their father." So do whatever you have to do, just make them quiet. I want to sleep. So how can we do it? So take the head of their father to them. So we have that they placed the head of Abu Abdullah on a plate and covered it, on a bucket and covered it. And they brought it to the ruins of Sham. And imagine that the one who started everything is this girl. So everybody's mourning around her. Everybody's crying with her. So these soldiers pushed aside everyone, get to this girl and placed that plate in front of this girl. What this daughter of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam said, she looked at Hazrat Zainab and said, "Oh Aunt Zainab, I didn't ask for any food. I'm not hungry. I don't want food. I want my father. I cannot be more patient. I cannot be more separated from him. Tell me when my father will be back." And Zainab al-Kubra salamullah alayha, her eyes are filled with tears. She looked at Ruqayya salamullah and said, "My dear Ruqayya, what you're looking for is under this cover." So she removed the cover and saw the head of her father. Ya Rasulullah, the head of Abu Abdullah before Ruqayya. So she picked up the head of her father. This head is covered in blood, ashes. This head been through a lot. So she started cleaning the head of her father, talking to her father. "My father Hussein, where have you been? What happened to you? Why there's so many cuts and bruises on your face? Who have done this to you, my father? Why your hair is covered in ashes? Where have you been?" So she started talking that my father Hussein, how they treated us, what they have done to us, what they've done to my aunt Zainab, what they've done to my aunt Kulthum. "Tell me, my father Hussein, where is my brother Ali al-Asghar? Where is my brother Ali al-Akbar? My father was saying, tell me about my uncle Abbas." What she said, Allah knows. But she was crying, and she was the reciter of Musibah. Imagine the daughter of Hussein is the reciting the Marthiyah, the Musibah of Abu Abdullah, and everybody's crying. Those who say this tradition wasn't there, remember the first azab for Hussein was conducted by Prophet, but now the children and the women are crying around Ruqayya salamullah alayha. But there was a moment that they noticed that Ruqayya stopped talking. There's no more crying from her. So as Zainab salamullah alayha came closer to Ruqayya and she saw the lifeless body of Ruqayya on the ground, how can she handle, imagine a 3-year-old, how can she handle to see the head of her father on her lap? Ya Rasulullah, this is how they treated your family, the women and children of your family. This is why Abu Abdullah was saying, "Hal min nasirin yansuruna, hal min dhabbin yadhubbu an haram Rasulullah." Is there anyone to defend the sanctity of the family of the Prophet? Because Imam knew that this is coming for her children, this is coming for Zainab, this is coming for the women of Rasulullah's family. Ya Allah, they asked for someone to assist to wash the body of Ruqayya. Again, if you've been to these majalis, this girl again is a shaheeda. This is somebody that Allah said, بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. Those girls who were buried alive by their pagans fathers, in the day of judgment, Allah said, we will ask them, with what crime you killed these children, you killed these girls. Ya Allah, of course you would ask them, بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. What was the crime of Ruqayya? What was the reason you did this to this child, an orphan? Why you treated her that way? Allah, you will stand up in the day of judgment for them. You will do justice to them. They brought this woman to help washing the body of Ruqayya. She looked at and said, who is your leader? Everybody pointed at Zainab, daughter of Ali. Zainab salamun alaykum came and said, what is it? What do you want? She asked, tell me what was the sickness of this child? What sickness? This child wasn't sick. How is that possible? What do you mean? The woman said, wherever I look at the body of this child is covered in blood, covered in bruises. Tell me, how is that possible for someone like this child to have no elder? Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah, ya Hussein ibn Ali, ayyuha ash-shaheed, ya ibn Rasulullah, ya hujjat Allah ala khalqih, يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. هر جا نشستی، هر دل شکستی هست بین ما، صدا بزن. سرور و آقای شهدا رو، سید الشهدا رو، یا وجیهان عند الله اشفع لنا، یا وجیهان اشفع لنا. گوشه خراب قوقا شد، گوشه خراب قوقا شد، رقیه فدای بابا شد. ای گل خوشبو ز درختت که چکید، تیغ که رگهای گلویت برید. نازدانه ابو عبدالله، و خانومی که قبل از اینکه آقا میدان برود آمد نزد بابا. بابا جان، وقتی که خبر شهادت مسلم رو آوردن، تو فرزندان مسلم رو در آغوش گرفتی بابا، دست یتیم نوازی به سرشون کشیدی. بابا بگو وقتی که تو نباشی چه کسی دست یتیم نوازی بر سر ما بکشد؟ به خواب دیده ام امشب قرار می آید، خزان عمر مرا هم بهار می آید. شنیده ام به تلافی بوسه گودال، برای دلخوشیم بیقرار می آید. گفتم این بانو، این دختر 3 ساله از شهادتش هنوز چند روز مانده است تا شهادت. اول بردن اسرای اهل بیت رو به کوفه، بعد از مدت اینها رو بردن تا به شام رسیدن. وقتی به شام رسیدن اینها رو در یک خرابه ای جا دادن، معون و معواشون شد خرابه های شام. اون خاندانی که با حرمت و احترام وقتی که سفر میکردن، علی اکبر می آمد عمه رو بالای محمل سوار میکرد، عباس که دست خواهر رو میگرفت. حالا این خاندان بدون عباس و علی اکبر، بدون علمدار، بدون حسین، دارن از جمع نامهربان از یک جا به جای دیگر. وقتی رساندن اونها رو به خرابه شام، این بدنهایی که تازیانه خورده، این بدنهایی که ما داریم در روایت ها مقتلا نوشتن چه کردن با این خاندان پیامبر، با سیلی با تازیانه اینها رو منزل به منزل تا رسیدن خرابه شام. نیمه های شب اینا گفتن یه استراحتی کنن، راه طولانی رو آمدن با قل و زنجیر، بعضی ها روی محمل های بیجاز. آقا خود میگن آقا امام سجاد رو روی شتر بیجاز نشانده بودن، با قل و زنجیر دست آقا رو بسته بودن، بر گردن مبارکش قل و زنجیر. حالا اینها رسیدن این اسرا لحظه ای رو استراحت کنن، این غم ها این مصیبت ها. نیمه های شب این دختر زاله از خواب بلند شد، خواب بابا رو دیده، تا حالا شده از فرزند شما بیاد طفل شما خواب بدی دیده باشد، میخواد در کنار پدر و مادر باشه. نیمه شب بلند شد صدا زد عمه جان من بابام رو میخوام، عمه جان به من گفته بودی بابام برمیگرده از سفر. عمتی این ابی کجاست پدرم؟ عمه جان چی گفت زینب؟ ان اباک فی سفر، پدرت سفر رفته. ای نور چشم من، هرچه که خواست حضرت آرام کند حضرت زینب نتوانست، رقیه نازدانه بهانه بابا گرفت تا صدای نالش بلند شد. غم این زن و بچه تازه شد، نگذاشته بودن اینا عزاداری کنن، نگذاشته بودن گریه کنن، الان کنها رو تنها گذاشتن در خرابه شام. مجلس عزا و مصیبت شهدا بلند شد، صدای با حسینا با محمدا خرابه رو پر کرد. یزید ملعون از خوابش بیدار شد، رو کرد گفت چه خبر است؟ چرا اینها سر و صدا میکنن؟ سربازی رفت خبر آورد، گفت اینها دارن عزاداری حسین میکنن. گفت زر حسین رو ببرید بگذارید آرام بشن، بگذارید بخوابم. سر حسین رو داخل طبقی گذاشتن، یا رسول الله. سر رو پوشاندن، روی طبق یک پارچه ای رو انداختن، آوردن سر رو داخل خرابه شام. همه این زن و بچه ها دور و بر این دختر زال عزاداری میکنن، آوردن همه رو کنار زدن، طبق رو گذاشتن مقابل رقیه. چه از عمه جان من غذا نخواستم، با اینکه گرسنه است با اینکه تشنه است، من بابام رو خواستم. زینب را سلام الله علیها رو کرد، عزیز دل برادرم آنچه که تو به دنبالشی درون این طبقه است. یا رسول الله یا الله. وقتی که این پارچه رو کنار زد، سر غرق به خون بابا رو دید، سر رو گذاشت داخل دامنش، شروع کرد خونه ها رو پاک کردن. این خاکسترها رو از سر بابا خیلی سر رفته داخل تنور خونی، اینها رو کنار زده ای داره با سر بابا داره درد دل میکند. بابا حسین نبودی با ما چه کردن؟ نبودی عمم رو با تازیانه زدن؟ بابا جان به من بگو کجا بودی وقتی روی خارای مغیلان ما رو با برهنه بردن؟ بابا جان نبودی ببینی با ما چه کردن در مجلس ابن زیاد؟ نبودی ببینی برادرم امام سجاد رو غل زنجیر به گردنش انداختن؟ هر چه که در دل داشت این نازدانه با سر بابا کرد. زنان و کودکان دیگر هم دارن هم صدا شدن، با رقیه گریه میکنن. یه وقت دیدن صدای رقیه آرام شد، زینب آمد نزدیکتر آرامش بده به این دختر. هر چه کرده بودن آرام نشده بود، آمد هر چه صدا زد رقیه جواب نداد. بدن بیجان رقیه رو در آغوش گرفت. حسین جان به زینب دختران و یتیمانت رو سپرده بودی، چگونه روز قیامت جواب تو بدم که رقیه نازدانت رو در خرابه شام گذاشته؟ اگر چه یک انگشت آز کار افتاد، برای شانه زدن که به کار می آید. چنان ز طرز زمین خوردم که در گوشم هنوز نعره آن نیزدار می آید. چه حرفا که در اینجا به دخترت نزدن، صدای بی کسی از این دیار می آید. سرت به نیزه که چرخید قلب من هم ریخت. دوباره دور تو چندین سوار می آید. ولا لعنت الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. خدایا با آبروی اسرای اهل بیت، با آبروی رنجها و دردهایی که خاندان عصمت و طهارت بعد از سید الشهدا، بعد از عاشورا متحمل شدن، خدایا فرج امام زمان ما برسان. ما را از زمره منتظران و هوان و انصار امام زمان ما قرار بده. خدایا این اعمال ما، هر عرض ارادتی که کردیم به محضر اهل بیت پیامبرت، اینها رو وسیله آرامش ما در قبر و قیامت ما قرار بده. خدایا مریضان اسلام، اطفال مریضه، هر کسی که بر حاجتی، دستهای ما به درگاه تو بلند است. بهترین مخلوقات عالم پیامبر رو، اهل بیت پیامبرت، مظلومینی مثل مظلومین خاندان او رو نزدت آوردیم. خدایا این دستهایی که به درگاهت بلند است دست خالی بر مگردان. خدایا عاقبت ما، عاقبت نسل ما، ذریه ما، خانواده ما ختم به خیر بفرما. Let's inshallah everybody stand up. We finish inshallah with Azadari. May Allah accept from all of us. Again, before we do Sinazadan and Matam, say the salam 3 times to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. May Allah inshallah grant us the tawfiq of ziyarat of Imam Hussein and his shafa'at inshallah. As-salamu alayk ya Abu Abdullah. As-salamu alayk ya Abu Abdullah. As-salamu alayk ya Abu Abdullah. Sayyidi ya mazlum ya Abu Abdullah. Sayyidi ya mazlum ya Abu Abdullah. Sayyidi ya mazlum ya Abu Abdullah. As-salamu alayk. As-salamu alayk. As-salamu alayk. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. جواب نوحه. چراغ زندان خاموش امشب، ای بابای خوبم کجایی کجایی. چراغ زندان خاموش امشب، ای بابای خوبم کجایی کجایی.
چراغ زندان خاموش امشب، ای بابای خوبم کجایی کجایی. چراغ زندان خاموش امشب، ای بابای خوبم کجایی کجایی. چراغ زندان خاموش امشب، ای بابای خوبم. बाबा तुम पास नहीं, चाचा अब्बास नहीं, बाबा तुम पास नहीं, कोई भी आस नहीं आस नहीं. चराग़ ज़िंदा खामोश امشب،
ای بابای خوبم کجایی کجایی. چراغ زندان خاموش امشب، ای بابای خوبم.
बाबा मैं कैद में हूँ आप कहाँ हो बाबा, लाडली बेटी को एक बार पुकारो बाबा. पास आओ या मुझे पास बुला लो बाबा, अपने दामन में सकीना को छुपा लो बाबा। मेरे बाबा मुझे दुआ के सहारा, बाबा बाबा मेरे बाबा मुझे दुआ के सहारा। ए जाने सकीना कहाँ हो चरागे ज़िंदगी।
ای بابای خوبم کجایی چراغ
زندان خاموش امشب. ای بابای خوبم کجایی.
پدرم درد یتیمی دل من را خون کرد، پدرم درد یتیمی دل من را خون کرد. دست دشمن رخ این دخترکت گلگون کرد. آه از آن لحظه که با چوب به لبهایت زد، آه از آن لحظه که با چوب به لبهایت زد. دل آزرده ما را به خدا محزون کرد. قلبم از غصه دوریت شکسته بابا، قلبم از غصه دوریت شکسته. ای بابای خوبم کجایی
چراغ زندان خاموش امشب. ای بابای خوبم کجایی.
چراغ زندان خاموش امشب. ای بابای خوبم کجایی.
हाय सहती है सितम आपकी बेटी बाबा, खून बहता है मेरे कान है जख्मी बाबा। छीन कर ले गई क्यों बालिया मेरी बाबा, मांगते आके जो मुझसे तुम्हें देती बाबा। कितना मुश्किल है सकीना का गुजारा बाबा, बाबा कितना मुश्किल है सकीना का गुजारा। ए जाने सकीना कहाँ हो चराग़े ज़िंदान खामोश امشب.
ای بابای
خوبم کجایی
چراغ زندان خاموش امشب.
ای بابای خوبم کجایی.
من گل سرخ تو بودم که شدم پژمرده، بس که از دشمن تو سینه محکم خورده. از همان شب که من از ناق زمین افتادم، سوی چشمان مرا دست غریبی برده. مثل یک پیر زن خسته و زارم بابا، مثل یک پیر زن خسته و زارم. ای بابای خوبم کجایی
چراغ زندان خاموش امشب. ای بابای خوبم کجایی
چراغ زندان خاموش امشب. ای بابای خوبم کجایی.
बाबा कल ख्वाब में तुम पास मेरे आए थे, गोद में असगर मासूम को भी लाए थे। भाई अकबर चाचा अब्बास यहीं बैठे थे, बारी बारी गले लिपटा के मुझे रोते थे। जाने कब देखूंगी कुनबा में दोबारा बाबा, जाने कब देखूंगी कुनबा में दोबारा। ए जाने सकीना कहाँ हो चराग़े ज़िंदान
امشب. ای بابای
خوبم کجایی
چراغ زندان خاموش امشب.
ای بابای
صل على محمد و آل محمد.
صلوات دوما بلندتر. ما صلی محمد و آل. سوی شام می
کوفیان با شور و شین سوی شام میبرند این کوفیان با شور و شین ای زمین کربلا جان تو جان حسین ای زمین کربلا جان تو جان حسین ای وای مظلومان حسین ای وای مظلومان حسین ای وای مظلومان حسین ای وای مظلومان حسین ای زمین کربلا بودیم و ما مهمان تو ای زمین کربلا بودیم و ما مهمان تو نی کفی خوردیم زهاب و نی جوی از نان تو نی کفی خوردیم زهاب و نی جوی از نان تو ای وای مظلومان حسین ای وای محرومان حسین ای وای مظلوم حسین ای وای محرومان حسین ای زمین کربلا من شام و ایران میروم ای زمین کربلا من شام و ایران میروم جان من اینجاست و من با جسم بی جان میروم جان من اینجاست و من با جسم بی جان میروم ای وای مظلوم حسین ای وای مظلوم ای وای مظلوم حسین ای وای مظلومان حسین آفتابت ای زمین امروز بسی سوزان بود آفتابت ای زمین امروز بسی سوزان بود جسم صد چاک حسین بر روی تو عریان بود جسم صد چاک حسین بر روی تو عریان بود ای وای مظلومان حسین ای وای مظلومان حسین ای وای ای وای مظلومان حسین ای زمین کربلا امشب حسین تنها بود ای زمین کربلا امشب حسین تنها بود نی غلط گفتم که امشب ساربان اینجا بود نی غلط گفتم که امشب ساربان اینجا بود ای وای مظلومان حسین ای محرومان حسین ای وای مظلومان حسین ای وای محرومان حسین غریب مظلوم ابا عبدالله الحسین صلوات
بر محمد و اهل بیت محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد و آل محمد
من حسین ارشانم لا اله الا الله من حسین ارشانم آب را بر روی من ای ستمگران بستی قلب آل اسمت را از ره جفا خستی کودکان زهرا را دل زکین بشکستی دل شکست طفلان است لا اله الا الله من حسین ارشانم من حسین از ره ستم کشتی جمله یاورانم را میر لشکرم عباس قوت توانم را قاسم و علی اکبر میر دیگوانم را غرق خون جوانانم لا اله الا الله من حسین ارشانم من حسین جمله عزیزانم گشت غرق خون یکسر افتاده در میدان جسم پاکشان به سر خوردتی بر حلقه شیر خارم از غر شد خزان گلستانم لا اله الا الله من حسین اشانم لا اله الا الله من حسین اشانم صلوات
Dear brothers and sisters, one of the community members needs to leave unexpectedly. If you have a silver Lexus NX, and you're blocking here in the parking lot, please move your vehicle. Thank you.
Allah. ای اما بیان که به ما تاج سر آمد ای اما بیان که به ما تاج سر آمد دیدار یتیمش دوباره پدر آمد فصل دیگر آمد بابا بسر آمد بابا بسر آمد بابای غریبم بابای غریبم بابای غریبم بابای غریبم بم تو مای منی جان منی من ثمر تو من ثمر تو مای منی جان منی من ثمر من ثمر تو روشن شد ظلمت کده از نور سر تو آزرد از شامم عشق تو مرامم بابای غریبم بابای غریبم بابای غریبم بابا تو کجا بودی از ناقف افتادم از ناقف افتادم بابا تو کجا بودی از ناقف افتادم یک ضربت سیلی هنوز است بیادم رویم شده نیلی از ضربت سیلی بابای غریبم بابای غریبم بابا بابای غریبم بم آین گل زهرا سر خونین تو بویم آین گل زهرا سر خونین تو بویم با عشق خودم صورت زیبات بشویم بشکست سر من هستی ببر من بابای غریبم بابای غریبم بم کو پیکر تو تا که در آغوش بگیرم کو پیکر تو تا که در آغوش بگیرم سر را بگذارم سری دوش بمیرم قربان صفایت جانم بفدایت بابای غریبم بابای غریبم غریبم ای اما بیان که به ما تاج سر آمد تاج سر آمد دیدار یتیمش دوباره پدر آمد دیدار یتیمش دوباره پدر آمد فصل دیگر آمد بابا بسر آمد بابای غریبم بابای غریبم بابای غریبم بابای غریبم بر محمد اهل بیت محمد صلوات.
اکبر جوانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا. اکبر جوانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا. سرو روانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا. اکبر جوانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا. تا ناله اکبر شنی شاه مظلومان آمد سر نعش علی جانب میدان. غلاف گنده روی او دیده گریان تاب و توانم کشته شد آه و ویلا. اکبر جوانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا. روانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا. آمد سر جسم علی شاید شان رو رخ بر رخ اکبر نهاد دیده گریانه. فرت ورد دلکشی چون شم سوزانه روح و دوانم کشته شد آه و ویلا. اکبر جوانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا. سرو روانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا. ای جوانان بنی هاشمی اکثر آیاد بینید غرق خون پیکر اکبر. سوره حرم او را برید چون گل پر پر. آرام جانم کشته شد آه و ویلا. اکبر جوانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا. سرو روانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا. اکبر جوانم کشته شد آه و ویلا، آه و ویلا.
محمد آل بیت محمد صلوات. در خرام به طفلی جان به حق سپرده، در خرام به طفلی جان به حق سپرده. بس که تازیانه از عدو بخورده، صورتش شده نیلی بس که خورده و سیلی. آه از دل زینب، 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 آه از گفتم بر رقیه زینب حزینه، گفتم بر رقیه زینب حزینه. که خسرو جانم خسرو مدینه، بابت به سفر رفته از پیش نظر رفته. آه از دل زینب، 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 آه از دل زینب. گفتم که عمه اکبرم کجا شد، بابام با سفر رفته اصغرم کجا شد. نور دیدگانم کو، آموی جوانم کو. آه از دل زینب، آه از دل زینب، آه از دل آه از دل زینب، آه از دل زینب، آه گفتم با عمه از حیات رسیدم، گفتم با عمه از حیات و سیرم کاش و عم جانم الان بمیرم سیلی خور یادایم من بی کس و تنهایم از دل زینب 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 از عباس راس چیز مشکل باری ری مدد وکا شام تروانی ری عباس راس چیز مشکل باری ری مدد وکا شام تروانی ری مدد وکا شام تروانی ری مدد وکا شام تروانی ری مدد وکا شام لدوك شام ترواني ري شاتويل عين شام دق الغم جند جرهال شاتويل عين شام دق الغم جند جرهال فمج خبر ديا خير يوازي پاک ذو الجلال دشمر ظلم مسلمان كالهيري ري مدد وك شام ترواني ري مدد وك شام ترواني ري مدد شام وجد كرب بلا لري افسوس جرا وجد كرب بلا لري افسوس جلا ملك جن بشر اولياء وانبياء ملك جن بشر اولياء وانبياء فجرا جاري طول عالم دل فزوري ري مدد وك شام ترواني ري مدد وك شام ترواني ري عباس راس چیز مشکل باری ری مدد وک شام تروانی ری مدد وک حضرت حسین یاران طول اسفل شهیدان حضرت حسین یاران طول اسفل شهیدان مجھے کرلو اسیران فجرا دما شمان مجھے کرلو اسیران فجرا دما شمان مجھے کو جن بشر طول پزوری ری مدد وک شام تروانی ری مدد وک شام تروانی ری عباس راس چیز مشکل باری ری مدد وک شام تروانی ری مدد وک شام تروانی ری مدد وک شام تروانی ری اجزم اللہ بارہ گو پیمبر کہ غلی جان بنت ہم بجان غریبو اسم محمد صلوات
السلام عليك يا رسول الله يا نبي الله يا خير خلق الله يا خاتم النبيين السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين ويا إمام المتقين علي بن أبي طالب السلام عليك يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب السلام على 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسين علي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي الباقر وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا ومحمد بن علي التقي الجواد وعلي بن محمد الهادي النقي وعلى حسن بن علي العسكري الزكي السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان يا خليفة الرحمن يا إمام الإنس والجان يا أبا صالح المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات ولشفاء مرضانا رحم الله لمن قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.